this release has been focused primarily on making the product more robust based on all the input that we get from you guys as customers. And we did manage to get a bunch of enhancements in as well, and that's what we're going to be showing today. My name is Joe Anand. I'm the product manager here at MecSoft, for those of you who don't know me. And I'll be joined today by Don LaCourse, our application engineer, senior application engineer, who's going to be actually driving the product and showing you all the enhancements. Before we get started, a few housekeeping tips. If you want to keep this as interactive as possible, as usual, you can see the chat window on the lower right corner that the arrow is pointing to. That's what you use for typing in your questions. And we can stop Don if he's doing the demo, and then we can answer your questions, or we can pick up your questions later by email if we don't get time to get to that. And our recording of this webinar will be made available after the webinar is done, and then hopefully in a day or so, we'll send it out by email. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to be showing, starting out with the VisualCAD enhancements first for all the VisualCAD CAM users out there, and then jump into the CAM enhancements, which will be common to both the VisualCAD CAM and RhinoCAM 2023. With regards to the CAM enhancements, we're going to be touching upon the usability changes we have made, enhancements in 2.5 axis, 3 axis, 4 and 5 axis, and also turning. There's this is not by any means complete wrap up all the enhancements that went in, but these are most of the important ones that went in. Then we're going to be talking about some post-processor enhancements as well as licensing enhancements. So Don, let's, without any further ado, please take over.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is feeling okay today, and I hope you can hear me all right. If you have any technical issues or can't hear me, just go ahead and add them into the questions panel. Even though this is a major enhancement to our product, or a major robustness of the product, I'm still very excited about the new enhancements that we got into this 2023 version. And I think you're going to like these VisualCAD enhancements if you're a VisualCAD CAM user. We added some new curve modeling commands. First up, we have some additional rectangle commands. Previously, we only had one rectangle command, and now we've got 3. And also, we've got some new curve editing commands, and you're going to like these as well, especially while you're creating curves for doing your CAM operations. It's going to make it a lot easier on you. And then we did some display enhancements. You're really going to like the line thickness option that you can set. Makes it a lot easier to see your curve geometry and select it, actually. And we added some new grid positioning options that you can use. And also we gave you the ability to import multiple files at one time. So here is just a screen just shows the different enhancements of the curve modeling enhancements. I'll be showing you each of these in the demo, but if you look on the left, we got 3 rectangle commands now. We have the standard rectangle, and we have a rectangle, rectangle by picking the center point and a corner point, and also a standard 3-point rectangle, and then also a new rectangle by height, and this is one you use in your isometric view. And moving over, we have new ellipse commands. We haven't actually I don't believe we had ellipse commands before now, and that's pretty exciting. So we have the ellipse by center, where you can pick the center point and 2 diameter points to create your ellipse. You can also create your ellipse by selecting the diameter points and then a 3rd point. And you can also create an ellipse, what's called a foci ellipse, where you select the center point and then the diameter point, and then your actual point on your diameter. Now, the closed curve command is the one that I really like the most, because you're going to use this a lot during CAM operations. You obviously know, if you're familiar with CAM, in 2-axis, you're selecting curves. In 3-axis, you're selecting curves as containment. And in 3-axis, if you select curves as containment, they have to be closed. Previously, we didn't have commands that actually closed the curves for you. So we've got a closed curve command. I'm going to show you a little trick too, to use the merge command that will close things for you regardless of how big the gaps are. But anyway, you can close your curves automatically, which is great. And then we have some new splitting commands with different options that you can split geometry up into various component types. Now, for the usability enhancements, we added some new files.
Yeah, we're jumping into CAM enhancements now. This is common to both RhinoCAM and VisualCAD CAM.
Yeah, correct. So we've got some new save options in the preferences dialog. We'll show you about that whenever these actions take place whenever you load or save a file. Then we have some usability enhancements in the toolpath editor. If you make edits in your toolpath, for those of you on the Pro configuration and above, now those edits will be marked in the editor for you. And then we added some, this one I really like, the ability to resize the post and save as dialog. And also we added the ability to offset in the stock part box offset to give it a plus or minus Z offset. So let's see what else we got here. So here we're looking at the different dialogues that that are involved in the usability enhancements. These are all in the CAM module. Here is the CAM preferences that we added up here on the top left. We'll be showing you those in the demo as well. It's just telling the system what to do when you open and save files. And then also here, down here on the bottom left, we have the toolpath editor display edits, and then also the browse for post folder. You're really going to like this one. Previously, this was a very small dialog, and it made it hard to work with and find your posts. Now you can expand that dialog. It makes it a lot easier. Moving over to the right, on the post and save as dialog, previously it was a fixed size dialog as well. Now you can resize it. And then on the far right, you can now create a part bounding box stock based on a positive or negative Z dimension. Previously, I believe it was just a positive distance above the part. Now you can go positive and negative. Now let's talk about some 2.5-axis enhancements. You're really going to like this one if you drill a lot of holes. We made it a lot easier to drill holes by using a curve only. You don't have to select any points. You don't have to select any geometry other than a curve. And that curve can be a 2D curve or a 3D curve. And this applies to both 2-axis, 3-axis, and 4-axis. So you're going to like that pretty good. And we also have a new clustering command or option parameter in 2.5-axis profiling. If you have multiple inside-outside cutouts of the same part, it will cluster those for you. And then we added gouge checking and 2.5-axis profiling. This comes in really handy if you have a lot of curves and they're not necessarily closed and maybe they overlap. This command will actually throw down a 2.5-axis profiling operation based on the outer perimeter of all of your curves. It won't gouge any of the other curves that you have selected. It'll just go around the perimeter. So that's pretty exciting. I think that's going to save you a lot of time in debugging, your curve geometry in order to create a closed perimeter curve. Also, we added a lot of enhancements into saw cutting. If you're into cutting with a saw attachment, and that's pretty exciting as well. Now, here you can see the different drilling along a curve command. We start in the top left. You can drill along a surface edge curve. In other words, you create a curve from a surface edge, and you can drill along that curve based on how many drill holes you want to make, or how far distance they are apart, and it will calculate that along the curve. And you can do it along a circle as well. No more having to create circles and array them in a polar array or anything. Just draw your circle and then just do the drilling operation. And then over here, you can do drilling along 3D curves on a 3D part. If you look closer, I'm going to show you this in a demo, but if you look closer up here, each of those drill points the start of the drill cut will lie on the curve, and then it'll drill the depth based on that point along the curve. And you can see how that looks in the simulation down below. And then I really like this, the ability to do it in 4-axis. If you have 4-axis geometry and you need to put a pattern of holes, you can do that with curves that lie on your part and along the radial axis, as you see here in the top left corner. But also in the demo, when we do it, you can do that along a curve going across the 4-axis part as well. So that's pretty cool. No need to do the index machining. Now, first up, we have some other 2D enhancements, or 2-axis enhancements. On the left, we were talking about 2.5-axis profile clustering. Here you can see, you can select all of your curves that are inside of other curves, and it'll figure out the clustering for you. And here I was mentioning the gouge checking. If you have multiple curves and you don't have to go in and clean them up and make sure that they're trimmed and edged and everything like that. Just select all your curves and it'll put a profile around the outer perimeter of all of them. And then additional saw cutting options, we'll be showing you that as well. Now, what are we doing in 3-axis enhancements? This is a really cool option. If you were familiar previously, you could do end conditions when you're selecting surfaces to machine, and it would calculate an end condition based on the perimeter of the surface. So now you can actually use those end conditions on a curve region as well. So there's no need to select the surface, or if the surface is not great to select where you want to machine, just draw you a curve, a closed curve, and then you can add your on-pass 2 conditions to the curve. We also added another cut pattern and 3-axis projection pocketing for the pro users. You can now do a spiral offset cut pattern that is projected down onto the part. And then we have made horizontal roughing more robust now in this release. We eliminated the possibility of cutting, beginning your plunge motion in an area that's not been cut yet, which is not a good thing to do. So we handle this a lot better in this release. We'll be showing you that. Now here, I spoke about the curve conditions on, to, and past. Now you can do these on a curve, any curve. So if you look at the top left corner here, this is a sub D model. And really the only thing that you can select here is the actual sub D ISO lines you see here. And if you want to do some remachining in a certain area, you may not want to be limited to these, ISO lines. So you can just draw the curve that you want to machine, And these are the different on-to past conditions lined up here on the bottom. And then up here in the top right, there is the offset cut pattern in projection pocketing, or the offset cut pattern. And also on the far right, this is just a picture of the robustness of the horizontal roughing clearing flats option. Oh, it also applies to multiple levels, but also in the clear flats. Now the 4 and 5 axis enhancements, we already mentioned the 4-axis drilling along a curve. We also enhanced 5-axis, index 5-axis output, how we handle and output the rotation angles in 5-axis. So now we handle the output of the second alternative solution angles, and then also as well in 5-axis when you're reorienting the Z-axis. We'll show you that as well. Now here, the 2 5-axis enhancements I just mentioned. On the left, we're outputting, if you look down here at the arrow, we're outputting the alternate way of getting to that orientation. Previously, we only output the one angle, and now we can output the alternate angles as well. And you can use these, primarily you would probably use these in post-processing or our programmable post.
If I can jump in here, Don.
Sure.
So basically in 5-axis, for any orientation of the tool, you have 2 possible solutions for the 5-axis angles of these, rotary angles on the machine. So previously the system was actually computing both angles, but was actually outputting only the angles that the system thought was the appropriate angle. It was based on the previous positions of the machine tool. And in some cases that got us into trouble because users wanted us to be using the alternate solutions. So what we have done in this release is actually output both the angles and allow the user to select which angles they want to be output. They want to be posting. So that's what we're showing here. And then the second enhancement is, if you notice, if you look at the coordinate system in the graphic, the Z-axis is pointing up in both cases. But if you notice, the X and the Y axes are different. So the X and the Y were actually rotated about the Z-axis. In 2022, we ignored the orientation of the X and the Y, and we only looked at the Z-axis orientation and computed the angles. But now we're also looking at the X and the Y orientations, and you can see the angle computations are different in case 1 as opposed to case 2. So that's the change we've made. So go ahead, Don.
Okay. Now we also made some enhancements to our turn module. Previously, we were limited in that your geometry, when you created your geometry for your turn part, the geometry had to lie on the X-axis and touch the Z-axis. Now, and that really caused some problems. If when you're parting off on the back of the part, and when you have your part, if you don't have enough part material or stock material behind the part, then it made that impossible to do the cutoff, or difficult to do the part off operation in the back. Now your part can be offset out from the X-axis, and it'll automatically compensate for that when it defines the part geometry, which makes it a lot easier. And then we added some enhancements to retractions, and this comes in handy when you're doing ID machining, finishing, and roughing in an ID. Now we're retracting linearly back out to the clearance plane and not diagonally from the last cut point. I'll show you that in just a moment as well. If you use the turning operations a lot, you will notice that enhancement. So here it is right here in the turning module. If you look at the tool here, we're cutting an inside finishing operation. And if you look at the red, it's retracting back out all the way out to the clearance plane. And then also on the right, your part doesn't have to be touching the x-axis, and I'll show you that as well. Now we're doing some post-processing enhancements as well. Joe, you want to handle this one?
So as far as post-processing enhancements, we have segmented that into changes to the legacy posts and then the programmable posts. So we've added macros for first-last motions. We've also added new post variables based on your input or user input. And then in the programmable posts, we have access to the machining parameters now. So we can actually inquire parameters of the machine tool, like intolerance and out tolerance and stock left and things of that sort, from inside the post, which can be very useful. And then we also introduced some very new machine definition variables that the post can use. And finally, the ability to write to another file from the post directly. So you're not necessarily restricted to write, posting to the selected post file or post output file. You could actually write to an external file if you wanted. That's some users have requested us to be able to do that. So that was a change there. So go ahead, Don. Yeah, we can come back to this after get more into more details later on. So yeah, as far as licensing enhancements, we've added diagnostics of we ran into some issues for the network lock licensing on the field with lack of diagnostics. And so we've added that, enhanced that quite a bit. We're going to be releasing a new version of the License Service Manager application. And then also due to security concerns with the CentOS operating system, we have discontinued the LAN daemon network licensing system completely. And we are relying on the network lock licensing scheme now in 2023. So there's basically, node locked and cloud licensing for commercial users. And if you have multiple seats, like in schools or even in commercial users who have a large number of seats, we offer them the network lock licensing scheme, which is much easier to implement and administer from an IT perspective. Okay, go ahead, Don.